over to Bob and let him talk a little bit about the work that he's doing with AARP. So queue up your questions, and after Bob's done, we'll spend a little time talking.
Thank you, Danielle, and two great presentations. Thank you both very much. I couldn't help but think that we're sitting here talking about social connectedness, and we're doing so in a virtual environment, right? And we at AARP were fortunate in large part to Jeremiah, who I mentioned earlier, who was way ahead of his time. We were prepared to immediately transfer all of our in-person programming to virtual programming. And we've seen through that process kind of a fascinating evolution where, first of all, we were providing a lifeline of information for people via virtual environments, information about COVID, about vaccines, about keeping yourself healthy, brain health, that sort of thing. And then over time, remember, we're talking 2 years now, we sense this sort of virtual fatigue setting in. And I think we all understand that. And now, as we all contemplate going back to in-person events, as wonderfully highlighted by this photo here, we're seeing the pendulum start to go back a little bit, in that there is some reticence out there about attending these mass events again. So what we see going forward is kind of a hybrid. People are used to this virtual environment. They're going to continue to want that content, but at the same time, they're going to look to do what these two lovely ladies are doing in this photo and interact on an in-person basis. So I just have 4 quick slides. If we can switch to the next one. So I'm going to talk about the healthcare impacts of social isolation, and indeed, on the next slide, talk about life expectancy implications of it. So AARP does a lot of research, and we have found that the negative impacts of social isolation health-wise can be equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. We show that Medicare pays an additional $6.7 billion annually in taxpayer money to deal with healthcare outcomes from social isolation. And you can see how that compares to other things like arthritis, high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes. Those numbers aren't that important, but the important thing to me is it punctuates the fact that we're even having this conversation about negative health impacts along with diabetes and heart disease, right? This is a very serious societal healthcare matter when we talk about social isolation. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go down a little different path here, in part because this study just came out yesterday. Maybe I just liked writing 2/22/22, but it did in fact come out yesterday. I thought this was really fascinating. We do a lot of studies at AARP. This one has to do with equity of life expectancy, which I think needs to be a part of this conversation. And then the economics of the inequities, if that makes any sense. So the report, this is called the disparities in life expectancy. It has the disparities will contribute 1.6 trillion in annual economic costs to the GDP, 10.1 million lost jobs, 1.1 trillion loss in consumer spending. And if you're represent a local government like I did, you know how important sales tax revenue is to providing services. But most importantly is the human cost here. The disparities in life expectancy, and I'm talking about amongst people of different racial and ethnic backgrounds. You can see that's 6 years lost for an African-American man, but the overall impact on all of us of this inequity is 4 years loss in life expectancy. And 92% of the people we're talking about are in the age 50 plus cohort. So if we're able to equalize these racial disparities, there'd be an average of 3.7 additional years of life expectancy for all of us. And that would be 6.6 additional years for an African-American male. A lot of statistics, but we like to view things through the equity lens, and this is just one example of that. Next slide, please. So what does AARP do about social connectedness? We have our priorities, we call them enterprise, AARP enterprise, but we have 8 or 9 or 10 priorities that we focus on. And you can see how many of them really go back to social connectedness. Digital literacy, we've talked about that. Senior Planet is now an affiliate organization of AARP, training people in the use of technological equipment. broadband access so you can utilize that equipment. And by the way, equitable, there's that word again. It's not just about reaching rural people, it's about reaching about equitable access in urban areas as well. Making sure people have financial security through encouraging retirement savings, Social Security, et cetera. Making sure people can afford healthcare so they can live a little bit longer and in a healthy lifestyle. Long-term services and supports, a big focus of ours, making sure that people can stay in their homes and in their communities as long as possible. It's healthier for the mind and body. It also is healthier for taxpayer dollars. Family caregiving. There are 48 million family caregivers in the United States, over 600,000 here in Colorado. We place a lot of emphasis on that. And I just want to do a quick shout out here. We are nonpartisan, but yesterday was National Thank a Caregiver Day. I knew that because Senator Michael Bennet, who has long been a champion of character, sent out a tweet thanking family caregivers yesterday. So he's long been a champion for that in Congress. Obviously, affordable housing, we want to make sure people can live with dignity and a roof over their heads. And then age-friendly communities, ensuring social connectedness through that. Next slide, please. Speaking of age-friendly communities, this is a long-time effort we have. We have over 600 in the United States. We provide people a structure of 8 domains of livability. And you can see that between social participation, social inclusion, civic participation, how many communication information, half of these are directly related to the connectedness that we're talking about right now.